Hi everyone, Florence Theriault here again. I want to welcome you to a walkthrough with me of the dolls coming up in our wonderful auction, Cherished, featuring many dolls from fabulous Australian collections. Can you believe? First time ever, Stuart went down under and worked with these wonderful Australian collectors and brought back a few collections, including the famous collection of Lila Ray, who wrote her wonderful book and talked about the adventures of collecting dolls in Australia and what a grand opportunity it was. That's all talked about in our auction catalog. But we have nearly 600 dolls to offer to you in 2 days. And we have about half of them here, and I'm going to do a walkthrough with you and just show you some of the items we have. And we're going to do this fairly quickly as though the auction was about to take place. And we only have 45 minutes or an hour before the auction takes place. So let's pretend we're here. And in the meantime, after you see them and you're excited, I want you calling the office and making your reservation for a seat so you can come and actually attend the event. You'll have a lot of fun. It's a nice, intimate setting. Well, here's our first table we have. We have a wonderful, elegant woman, or her dress anyway, from the early period that we're featuring, and that's framing our wonderful arrangement with a lady's writing desk, a wonderful French wedding dome from the 1890s that was done. Whenever someone was about to be married, they would go to a jeweler and they would say, I want to arrange under a dome some items that would be symbolic of what I'm hoping for out of our wedding. And after the wedding, they would take their wedding crown or their corsage or some memorabilia from the wedding and rest it on the cushion inside the dome. Very, very beautiful pieces. Appropriately, we posed in front of it a wonderful French bride, German bride rather, in a wedding costume, lovely pearl-encrusted wedding costume. And she will be standing next to her. She's from an Australian collection, and two little miniatures behind. Let's move on to table number 1. And this is absolutely a great selection, centered by what everybody's thinking this time of year, their holiday ornaments. And there is a vintage feather tree with vintage ornaments on it. Very, very wonderful to find. And I just love the dolls that are surrounding it. They are a wonderful doll that has the original label from the Onan Bleu Paris doll shop. And I'm going to show you several others here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that as we go along. But the Onan Bleu Paris doll shop, this is a super doll. It's a French doll by Julienne, even with her original signed Julienne shoes. I have never seen a pair before, so I was pretty excited when I saw that. Standing in front is a little Jumeau with her original Jumeau dress made in the workshops of Ernestine Jumeau, and that is also always a wonderful thing to find. And she's pointing and making you pay attention to one of my favorite dolls in the auction, not one of the rarest or the most expensive, but just everything about this doll to me is so, I don't know, it's just precious. She has sculpted hair, and she has those gorgeous blue eyes, little black molded hairband, original costume, and this original body with, very rare to find, the bisque arms to above the elbow. Great to find. Standing under the dome in the back while we're talking about domes is the smallest size of the Bruno Schmidt doll known as Wendy. Smallest size. She also graces the cover of our catalog along with larger dolls, and that is an extremely rare doll to find. And of course the beautiful Jumeau Triste. And then, let me skip over to this side and show you, here's a very rare piece. We have 2 of these in the auction. These are mechanical pieces with a very elaborate wire construction that they nod back and forth. I'm not turning them on because when they go, well, it would be good to put, you could go to sleep with the tick-tock of them going back and forth, but they have the purple-suited Santa, and he's showing the dancing clown, and the little girl is raising her hand to it enthusiastically. And it's by Shonha. Very, very rare to find. And it comes with its original box with the original instructions on how to assemble it on the inside lid of the box. So a very, very rare piece to find. That's wonderful holiday kind of themed table we've done. Well, we have some more wonderful dolls continuing, and I thought you would like to see this little trilogy of 3 examples from the Cameron Reinhardt art character series. Of course, the beloved Mein Liebling as she reaches into the feather tree to help decorate it, and then her 2 companion sisters down here, the bottom one being a rare glass-eyed version of one of the art characters that came out. So many things I have, as I was preparing this walkthrough, I started thinking about all the things that to me are still questions waiting to be answered in the doll collecting field. And you know, I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to buy a Brew, and I'm going to buy a Jumeau, and I'm going to have this, and I'm going to have that. But it goes way further than that. Is that the right grammar? Way further? I think it is. Because there's so many little nuances of things that you might want to get into and develop. And one of the things that I have always been really kind of fascinated by is the development of the wooden body for the French poupée and how it all evolved partly from the early Neapolitan dolls, partly from the early Japanese dolls, and definitely from this wooden artist mannequin doll that we have found in German catalogs of German wooden artifact makers in the 1700s. And these were made as artist mannequins to pose the body in different ways to use as their models. And then if you see how closely related the French fashion carved wooden poupée body is, I want somebody to do some really good research into developing that whole theory. Behind them is a great example of a Bébé Brew in an absolutely fabulous costume with that wonderful embroidered vest. I mean, and I don't know if you're able to see it, but he has these stockings on him that are so fashionable, and they just complete the whole costume, including his hat. Lovely French fashion lady up on top, along with a German shoulder-head man with sculpted sideburns, which is very wonderful. We have more beautiful French poupées here, all of them in the bridal mode. They all could have had one of their wedding domes to go with them. And then centered in the middle is a Brew with what collectors like to say, the face. She does have the face with a little tiny tongue tip and the very, very gentle expression. This is an exceptional example of a Brew. We have the Smiling Brew poupée. Again, so much research needs to be done on that. So many suggestions have been made. Is she supposed to be a portrait of the Empress Eugenie? Is she a portrait of a carved angel that appears in so many of the edifices in Paris? Lots of work to be done, so let's all get with it and get going on our research. And then as we continue along, we have 3 examples of Jumeau bébés in their original factory chemise dresses presented by Jumeau, and I particularly want to call attention to the little one in the middle. Look at her hair. The hair comb at the top of her head, that is an original comb from the Jumeau factory. Very, very hard to ever find them. This is how they were presented originally. Lying down here is a superb example of a Bébé Steiner, a little Bébé Steiner, and the giveaway. Again, we mentioned the Au Nom department store before. Look. Here's a label from the Au Nom department store. This entire presentation was made by them. And if you want, Francois Timer has already done a book about Au Nom and a lot more could still be researched of new things that keep coming out. I'm going to be showing you the Halipo, the H doll, as we get around to the other side of the room later. And I was looking up, because it has the original label on the body, Au Paradise des Enfants. I started looking up and doing sort of like a cross-by-cross study of comparing Au Nom and Au Paradise des Enfants, the 2 Paris toy stores that were premier during this time. And it's an interesting comparison, 2 luxury toy stores. And again, you could get on it, and there's so much to learn about them. Continuing along with other wonderful French bébés, we have another beautiful little Jumeau in her little original chemise and jewelry. We have Steiners, we have more Steiners, and take a look at these little kids right here. This is really great. I know people like to have the little Heubach characters, but coming to us in one of the collections was this, and look, there's 6 of them, each is different. And I don't think that I realized how many different variations they were. And you know, you have to pick which one you like, but I kind of think you need to have them all. We put them in 2 different groups, but they like that little one, the guy clasping his stomach like he just had a good treat to eat. And I like the little guy he's ready for a fight there, whatever he has to do. Again, if brew is your dream, you cannot find a more beautiful brew than this outstanding example. Standing up there proudly above everyone else. Again, from the golden age of the brew production with her beautiful bisque cans. Again, the wonderful face, the classic face that's very, very desirable to find. We have a wonderful photo album that is filled with children holding dolls and playthings. And some of them are even like groups of children, which are very, very rare to find, because usually in the vintage photographs, you will only ever find one child holding their doll, as you find there. We have another lovely brew right here. We have another lovely wedding dome. Again, this is what someone had built up as their memory, or what they wanted as the memory of their wedding. And please notice the flowers, the flower garland around there. Those are porcelain. Those are porcelain flowers. And a lot of people do not realize that. They think that they're like silk flowers or fabric flowers of some type, but they're not. They are actually formed porcelain and then decorated with the wax orange blossoms. And resting on the pink tufted cushion is the beautiful coronet of the bride at that time. A very, very rare doll right here, the character doll, is the Fritz Biershank model. Sometimes when we get a rare model, I'll go back and look in our archives and see how many others we have had to sell over the years, because that kind of gives me an idea as to their rarity. We have had, I think it was either 2 or 3 other examples of this model that we've sold over the years. One of them had a very unique body, almost like a flapper lady, but this one, about an inch bigger, one size bigger anyway, than the other one, was designed and costumed as a gentleman, and has a more classic Sonnenberg type body on him, not the flapper type. We have more examples. I mean, there are so many beautiful jumeaux in this collection, and here is another example of one. And then we have a lovely poupée standing above with her sedan chair ready to be taken for a lovely ride. I know many of you want to buy a brew and you want the perfect face, but if you expand your horizon a bit and think of some of the other things that the Maison Brew did, both under Leon Casimir Brew and then moving into Henri Chevreau and then later into Paul Girard epochs, you will find other wonderful ones. Here's a beautiful doll, and you think she's just lovely to look at, and she certainly is, but listen. Yes, she's musical. She has can you imagine a child coming to someone and saying, "Oh, I'd like to show you my doll," and then suddenly they reach their hand up and they turn the key at the back and this wonderful music comes out of it. An extremely rare doll to find from Brew. They made it in an earlier version, and then this one was done about the 1890 period. Very good example. I have some fabulous wooden dolls to present to you in this auction, and I'm really excited about them. In this particular case, well, here we have one of the lovely cage dolls, known as the cage doll, which is a horrible way to describe a doll, but that meaning that the bottom part of her skirt is formed from a wooden frame, basically. And they were originally designed as parade dolls to walk during ceremonies in the 1700s, 1800s in cities, and then they were dressed and were used as ceremonial dolls in various places. Here's a lovely one with really wonderful costuming, and she is next to this other carved wooden doll with enamel eyes, whose costume, when unwrapped, contains a hollow body in which there are a number of folded pieces of paper, which evidently were wishes that were placed with this doll in his earlier times. A very, very great piece. A wonderful English wooden doll with her wooden canopy bed. And then next to her, and in this area, we have several of the dolls from the French court dolls that are featured in this publication, all coming from a single collector. And important, Again, things that you could have fun with collecting, just going way up, over and above the doll, we call the story of the doll. And right here is the story of, you see the little jewel in his ear? He could be one of the characters from the French court, and down here is the gentleman that's known in the case as the jeweler. And there was this very famous episode that took place in France in the late 1700s, and it was the scandal of the jewelry. You can go on what some people call the Google machine, and you can look up this research on the French diamond scandal in the late 1700s and how it infested everyone in the French court. It was an extraordinary episode, and many people believe that the dolls that were made in this French court series represented various of the characters in there. You can have fun with your dolls beyond the object of the doll as a carved wooden doll in a wonderful silk costume, but the whole background behind it is exciting. I wanted to point out to you that many of these stories, including the story of this gentleman, are told in this wonderful book, which was done called Les Poupées Royales by Francois Timer. I don't know if you can find copies of it. It was a very limited edition book, but he wrote about all of these dolls, and this particular one was Charles Beaumier, jeweler of the court, and that's what he refers to, the whole scandal of the court. Next to him is, well, she's a woman, but she is a hermaphrodite, so I will give you no more details than that, and you'll have to buy her to know. She comes with her wonderful costume, including her disguise black hood, which really drapes completely over her head and over part of her body, and under her gown is a surprise. So that's a very, very rare example to have. Two wonderful Morgue dolls from the French court series are here, and this particular woman right here, it's in there, she has 2 pages in which Francois actually did an x-ray of her body so you can see the whole detail of it. And she has a kind of a very stern expression. And who does she represent? A lot of these people are still to be historical research done to determine exactly who they represent. Also from the French court series, let me move this up here so you can see this a little bit better, is this really unusual wooden doll that does have its original costume here, which we've left off so you can see. We're not certain of the purpose, but when you lift the skirt and then you lift it on the side, it can form into, on the other side, it can form into a tower in which there is a little figure, a little boy placed, and the whole meaning of it needs research, needs to be done. Francois proposed several ideas, but he proposed them with a question mark. So someone else needs to carry this on and continue to do this. A wonderful piece of carved wooden early toy. Like every great doll collection, you have variety. You don't just get focused in on one thing, and that's what this collection is, which makes me quite pleased to work on it since I had so many wonderful pieces. And I want to start over on the side. We have this wonderful composition from the Patsy family by F&B, and in the second day of the auction there are more of these and some other absolutely outstanding composition dolls. Believe it or not, most of them from a collection in Australia who collected American composition, particularly celebrity dolls. You see some very, very rare examples there. We have our lovely Bluette. We have Bluette type, not necessarily signed Bluette, but Bluette type. We have an actual Bluette down here in an original Bluette dress sitting in the front. And then we have another Bluette who's in a trunk, which actually has inside the trunk the Au Nom Bleu label. So that makes it a very, very wonderful example because it's a Bluette that was presented in a trunk from Au Nom Bleu with various costumes. Standing behind them are 2 dolls from the Lynchy series. You wouldn't think Lynchy automatically, but these were dolls known as the Prosperity Baby. They were made in the early 1930s, and it was the Lynchy company trying to present something a little different and also trying to combat the remnants of the Depression era and how you could cope with that economically as a doll maker. Up on top, 3 wonderful Lynchies. You have from the series of the glass-eyed, flirty Lynchies, this girl, and I don't know why. I know everyone loves the felt costumes from Lynchy, and I love them too, but those organdy costumes, they, to me, are so incredible. The way they were able to manipulate all of those ruffles and gewgaws and decorations and not make them be overblown, but just really, really charming and presentable. So we have a wonderful flirty-eyed Lynchy. And then, check this out. This is not just one Lynchy tennis player boy, but it's 2 of them. And they are looking at each other very suspiciously, like, I don't really know if I can win over this fellow or not. It makes you realize how Lynchy could take the same kind of fabrics, the same materials, but put them together in different combinations of applique work and come up with something so totally different. Earlier, Lynchy did the wonderful Perot with his mandolin, and it's a very, very great example in a rare variation of the costume with the purple costume and the double ruffled collar, and the green vine going up at the top of his hat is rare to find along with the mandolin. Seated next to him is Mimi. Mimi is believed by collectors to be a portrait of Marlene Dietrich in a very typical pose, seated on a high bench with her beautiful long slender legs and her smoking of the flapper era kind of style, that she was a very, very great example of her. And in front of her, almost from a different era and a different kind of person, but similar colors and beautiful felt work, is the beautiful Mozart's wife. Isn't she lovely? Holding a little bird cage with singing birds. Behind them are 2 of the rarest dolls in the auction. These are from the Lila Raitt collection, and they are the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion. Now, why they are rare, they appeared from the Australian company Joy Toys, which a lot of American collectors have not heard of, but they were makers of early teddy bears and early cloth dolls in Australia. In 1939, when The Wizard of Oz came out, as all of you know, there were Wizard of Oz dolls and toys being made by American makers, but Joy Toys had obtained a license from Disney to make various characters of theirs in the Joy Toy, in the Australian Joy Toy company. But 1939, when The Wizard of Oz came out, something else happened. And that was that Australia declared World War II in Australia. And everything shut down from all of the imports coming into their country. So rather than import dolls of The Wizard of Oz, Joy Toys took to making them themselves. They were prototypes, they never really went on the market. Other examples are known to exist. So if you're looking for something that's really rare that you might not find anywhere else, here they are, Joy Toys, Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz.